What I love about Mount Pleasant is I feel like I get the best of both worlds. So this is an amazing, beautiful neighborhood. It's very kid-friendly. You got the city right there within walking distance. But then also, if I go that way, then I'm in the woods.
I would describe it as a little haven in the middle of a city. It's a very, very neighborhood, quiet vibe.
Somewhere along the line, people realized the historic value of Mount Pleasant, and I think that's a good thing.
I was literally just driving around, checking out neighborhoods, and I found Mount Pleasant, and I was just blown away at the beauty of it. So at the turn of the century, people were looking to move out of the row houses downtown into an area that had a little bit more space and more trees, and this filled the ticket. The architects who did the majority of buildings in Mount Pleasant are some of the most well-known architects in DC in the late 19th and 20th century. When my husband and I first moved here in the late 70s, it was not a desirable neighborhood. It had gone through the fairly typical waves of urban ups and downs, and it was after the assassination of Martin Luther King. So there was a lot of white flight, and a lot of, especially these bigger homes, were either abandoned or turned into halfway houses. And within a year of moving in here, there were demolition permits for some of the biggest houses in Mount Pleasant to put up very, very dense apartment buildings. And it became obvious that unless you fight for it, it's not going to be there. And that's kind of what the preservation is. This neighborhood is just very desirable. If we had not had the historic district, I really think this neighborhood would not bear any resemblance to what it is today.
So the folks from the 70s really opened up, I think, doors for the community that really came in mass during the 80s. So in the 80s, while we had a huge growth of Central Americans, Salvadorans, Guatemalans in this area, and Mount Pleasant was very much a village feeling, if it were, it's like a pueblo. Many people in our home countries come from smaller communities, and Mount Pleasant had that feeling of being a small community.
In the 1980s, I was an elementary school teacher in my country. And during the Civil Wars, at a time like 300 a teacher had been killed, I had to leave. This is really, to me, the heart of Del Barrio, and for the Salvadorian, this was a corner, and you can still see people that have been here for many years. We didn't have internet, so this was the place where we get the news. This was the place when we knew about family or what's going on. That was very important. So to me, that was my pedacito from El Salvador, right in the capital of the United States.
The story of the Central American migration is really a story of being invisible and not having the reasons that have propelled us to this country even recognized for a decade, and therefore provided no support. La Clinica was born as a response to those health needs during the Mount Pleasant uprising, back then known as the riots, now reclaimed as the uprising. There was a new generation who were protesting the shooting of a person here on the street. It was a huge moment for us as a community, painful as it was, because finally people started to say, who are all these people? Why are they so mad? Why are they here? This is really the heart of the Latino neighborhood. The Little El Salvador is a name that I know some of us are trying to claim, right, for this area. And it really is very much an important benchmark, for coming to this country. There's no denying that the changes that started to happen in Washington, D.C. In 1990s pushed a lot of people out who could no longer afford to live here. I do think there's been a lot of efforts in Mount Pleasant through a number of different associations to preserve the neighborhood for the people that had claimed it in the 80s. I think it's going to take a lot of us making sure that not just culturally, but economically, Mount Pleasant maintains the diversity that people enjoy about the neighborhood.